Green Peaches by Cassandra Passarelli. The day after La Rania was kidnapped, a truck stacked with furniture ground to a halt on the dirt road below our hut. A stocky man, a tiny woman with a baby, and a plump girl got out with the driver and the boys. "The Castillo family," the ugly Dona with patchy brown skin announced. Mamacita said nothing, just stared, arms folded over her belly. They began unloading their things into the house across the road that has been empty forever. News had come that morning of the bodies somewhere up north, on the roadside, arms butchered into chunks like churrasco. The day before, Tio Bernardo saw 8 men with guns push La Rania and the Diputado into a black pickup and drive off. That Sunday, Kansas Joe delivered a sermon on the Seventh Commandment. Stealing people was punishable by death. Kansas Joe said God set the commandments in stone for good reason. Minor whispered there was no paper in Moses' lifetime, so he had no choice. The police never came. Mamacita turned the whole thing into El Señor's hands. La Rania's son dropped in on the Castillos, a pistol tucked into the back of his jeans. Months have passed, and no one has been caught, which makes you wonder about God. What's the point of engraving commandments if you're not going to follow up? Perhaps he's distracted. Or, like Mamacita, he's nuts. That's what they say around here. She's just short on words with most folk, but she speaks plenty with God. It's likely not the same God as Kansas Joe's. She takes a different tone. When I peered through the gate, Dona Castillo was yapping orders at the maid. A little girl with sad brown eyes was sitting on the steps, thumb in her mouth, stroking her dog. I asked if she could play. The Dona said we mustn't go far. I showed her the river Chio, our house, Papi's cows, our dog Mika, and the mill. Belen was only 6, but she acted big. I put her in her place. I was the prettiest girl in Chio. My cheeks were full as ripe melons, my hair the color of toasted maize, and my eyes black as zapote stones. And the wickedest, my nickname was La Llorona. We were 7. 2 picked tea at Chiribeco. The eldest worked in the city. Only Mama, me, Minor, Paco, and the baby Chiquillo were left. Even though Papi left after Chiquillo was born, he counted. We were 3 families in the barrio. Ours, Papi's new one, and Tio Estuardo's. 30 or so siblings, half-siblings and cousins lived along our bumpy road. All had hollow cheeks, fair hair, and hungry eyes the color of the river in rainy season. We called folk on the other side of the river the shadows. Dark and skinny, you only saw them at dawn or dusk. The first time we played at Belen's, Minor asked if he could borrow books, but the Dona said no. So he sneaked out with a couple under his t-shirt. We weren't allowed there again. Their maid would throw stones at Mika and shout, "Out!" at all of us. But one weekend, Dona Castillo stopped me in the street and asked if I'd feed their dog, Rudy, while they were away. She gave me 3 toppers full of meat, bones, and rice. I ate the livers myself and fed the rice to Mika. Still, his ribs stick through his coarse fur like the struts of a loom, not like their sleek Rudy, plump and silky as a corncob's beard. On Saturday, while Mamacita dozed, I slipped out. Minor followed. "Where are you sneaking off?" "To feed Rudy." "With?" "Never mind." He scrambled after me, through the plot of weeds, over the fence and into the Castillo's garden. You're just supposed to push it under the gate. If you're going to be a pain, go home. I hoisted myself up to the star-shaped open window, the Valence room, and peered in. I could make out the desk and shiny lamp in the darkness. When my arms ached, I dropped down, and Minor pulled himself up. We took turns. Then we sat on the steps looking at the freshly macheted grass. I dared him. He clambered up, squeezed through the gap, dropped onto the table, and unlocked the door from the inside. I stepped in. Minor grabbed some books and looked at pictures. I pulled toys from the box. There was an owl with button eyes just like real ones. A white rat you could stick your hand inside with a pink tail. Some fat and skinny tigers and a brown bear. My owl tried to kill Minor's rat, but the rat was bigger and had sharper claws. Then the tigers pitched in, but they were smaller, and the rat ate them up. Even the brown bear wasn't a match for Ratty. Before we knew it, it was dark outside. We filled our arms with toys and books and snuck home. Mamacita was sitting where we left her, nursing Chiquillo. Fill the pots, water dogs. The moment Paco saw the rat, he snatched it and began dragging it across the floor by its tail. From then on, the rat was his. Minor and I ran down to the river with the pots. 2 sweetbreads and a mug of cold coffee were waiting for us when we got back. We ate in silence. I slept with Helen's favorite tiger, Frankie. When I woke, Mamacita narrowed her eyes at me. Where'd that come from? The fields. Fetch 5 eggs from the shop. She waved a dirty 5-quetzal note under my nose. After breakfast, Mama noticed the books and things. Where'd you get all that from? Belen left her door open. We're borrowing them. I ran back and I got a bag of washing powder, a long brown comb, some toilet paper, and a toothbrush from a cupboard outside the toilet. Gracias el señor, Mamacita smiled. Mama left early. She forgot to leave any food. We went back to Valen's room with Paco. The door was still open, so we went in. Minor lay in Valen's bed of soft blankets. For a bit, we pretended we were Paco's parents. We giggled like crazy and made noises like grown-ups do when they think we're asleep. Then we sat in the garden and threw sticks into the peach tree. They were hard, green, and too sour to eat. But we brought them down anyway and tossed them over the fence. We spent all afternoon in the room. Minor wanted to play the bad game. He got mean, pulled my hair and slapped me. So I ran home with some dance shoes, white school socks, and pencils. After sunset, a thunderstorm shook our wooden walls and tin roof. Something pounded down on the roof like bullets. Paco bawled his eyes red under the table. Minor whispered, "It's God's punishment for breaking the 7th law. We'll be lucky if he lets us live." Minor crept outside and brought back pellets of ice in the palm of his hand, the size of black beans. I lay awake under the table, wondering when we would die. I just started to fall asleep when I heard the sound of the Castillo's 4x4 crunch over the gravel. I wished I was dead. The Doña's voice, high and squeaky, drifted across from their house. Mamacita came home. Belen's father came over. "Doña Letty, sorry to bother you, but somebody broke into our house. They stole all of Belen's toys. If you see something, let us know." "Quel señor le protege, I've just come back from the doctor," Mamacita said. "I have such a fever, I'll ask around in the morning." I stayed awake till the cicadas and frogs fell quiet and the roosters began crowing. Then it was time to get up. As I was climbing the hill to school, I looked back and saw Dona Castillo in our front yard. Just after lesson started, the head came into our classroom and whispered something to my teacher. Senor sent me outside. I felt the head's anger sizzling like pan-fried plantain as I followed her up the garden steps to the schoolyard. Under the avocado tree, Dona Castillo was waving a dinosaur puzzle book at Minor. Minor's profe was saying, I asked him the minute I saw it where he got it from, and he told me La Dispensa, but they don't sell books like that there. Why, Minor? Why have you done this? The Doña was wailing. You're our neighbor. Why steal Belen's things? She's your friend. Minor's face was twisted. His eyes darted anxiously. It wasn't me. My sister. And when he saw me, Belen loaned me it. Don't lie. You're making things worse, the head shouted, glowering. Kids were crowding classroom doorways, staring. Horrified smiles glazed on their faces. My cheeks flushed and my palms got sticky. Tears came cool and fast. Yes, and we did. We stole her things, I stuttered. Go, the head called to the profe. Go with the senora to their house and see what you can find. We followed. The profe called Mamacita out into the yard and handed her the list. She stood there, expressionless, staring at a space somewhere in front of her arms, arms resting on her stomach. Ah, here, senor, help me. I was sick. She handed the list back to the teacher. What does it say? A dozen soft toys, several books, white socks, ballet things, a comb, a box of crayons, 2 tins of color pencils, scissors, drawing paper, some clothes, soap, toilet paper. The profe and Dona Castillo stood outside, talking about the new road that would be built one day and water they would bring to Chio. Inside, we gathered up scattered toys. They were dirty and torn, and I didn't care for them anymore. Mamacita brought an empty plastic wash tub, and we filled it. She ceremoniously brought the tub out and put it on a tree stump in the sunshine. Mika sniffed it. Gaucho Jorge had joined the grown-ups and told Mamacita she should beat us raw and rub chichicasta into our hands. In the bright light of day, the things didn't look like Belen's anymore. The Doña gave us a lecture on how important it was for neighbors to live in peace and left with the wash basin. Papi showed up later, and I heard him shouting at Mamacita that she'd better get us under control. She said nothing. But after he'd gone, as I drifted off to sleep, I heard her. Dear God, the fools should thank us for giving them a leg up to heaven. Thieves, they say. Thieves, indeed. Wouldn't we all still be slitting chickens' throats to cucumats if the Pope hadn't poached our souls and rammed the Bible down our throats? Great blessing though it is, El Senor. Would any of us be here at all if the old Don Holtzman hadn't robbed the honor of whichever girl he fancied, including my grandmother's? Or if he'd not stripped my ancestors of their soil who worked this land for generations? And how were my children conceived if it wasn't for their pappy stealing my virginity? And would they have survived the little ruts if they in turn hadn't plundered my mother's milk, pilfering my good looks in the process? And where would we be but in the street if it weren't for the fact that we snitched these very 4 walls from my dead sister, may she rest in peace? Thieves indeed. I fell asleep with the tiger, Frankie, that